So I had become this very non-Asian persona, but still with the Asian face. And that has gained a lot of appreciation from the society, the environment I was living in. I wanted to target this issue with a completely different angle, which is to make women feel comfortable in their own skin. So sexuality. The reason that the men are there where they are is because someone else took care of everything else. So if women would have wives, I think we will be more successful than men.
Welcome to Before We Get There, the podcast where we explore people's journeys, how they got to where they are, what keeps them pushing forward, and where they eventually want to get to. I'm your host, Nicholas Brayman, and today I'm joined by JingJin Liu. JingJin is an entrepreneur, women's empowerment advocate, LinkedIn top voice, and angel investor. We talk about how she ended up thriving in Germany as a teenager fresh from China, her first entrepreneurial journey, how she ended up in Singapore, the awkward conversations when introducing her sexual wellness for women company, parenthood, how men can be better allies, and much more. Enjoy the show.
Hi, Nicholas. Thank you for having me.
It's great to see you. And what I wanted to start off with is I saw one of your posts on LinkedIn from a couple of weeks ago where you were talking about how you were with your kids at a playground in, I believe, Australia, and you noticed something about the parenting styles. Do you mind sharing that story with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was in Perth. This is my family is one of the favorite place. It's close to Singapore. The weather's nice, and then you have just space and you can be out. And then we were at this playground, so it's a bonding trip with my son. So only two of us went for a week. And then we were at this playground, and so he was playing. It's obviously from Asian parent perspective, a dangerous playground because the floor was not soft and it was high. And I could see, so there were several parents, and I see so Asian, let's just say Asian and Western parents. So us, yellow and white. What's funny is that the number one thing I observed is that all the white people, the parents, were playing with their kids. So they're running around and doing some silly things, which I think, okay, I didn't sign up for this. Just imitating, just be childish. And whereas there are some Asian parents, I think they are actually locals. So they are Asian parents, but living in Singapore or traveling like myself. And they were on the phone, myself included, yeah. And then the only communication they had with the kids is usually when the kids were screaming or the kids is doing something that they think is dangerous. And they will say, okay, you cannot do this. Don't run. Not a head back down. So myself included. And then it's just so interesting because I am doing the same thing. But then when I take a step back and then observe my son was somewhere else and I couldn't see. And then I can see myself literally there. And I see that how the Asians are being extra cautious, but not present at the same time. Whereas the Western parents, okay, say like, do whatever. And, but they are part of the do whatever. And that, I think that has been observing that from outside, it has been such a light bulb. There's so many reflections I had and questions that why can't I play with him? I find it very annoying to play all the silly things. Firstly, and secondly, I was like, okay, I can my mind is even somewhere else. So yeah, that's.
No, it's very interesting because I grew up in a Western household. I was adopted. So the parents I grew up with were actually white. And I grew up on the West Coast of the US. So very stereotypical suburban American kind of family and lifestyle. And my daughter is now coming up on 3 years old. And my wife asked me a similar question because she sees that I'm playing with my daughter all the time and she likes to be with me. And I told her, just think in your head, if I was a little kid, what would I like my playing partner be like to play? And you just do that, whether it's making silly faces or playing imaginary stuff and running around. So I think it's definitely a different style. And I was wondering, because you talk a lot about speaking up for yourself, being more assertive and those sort of topics, how Do you think that parenting style translates later in adulthood when people come into their workplace?
This would be my own subjective assumptions, no? I think just tapping on what you said. So as a result, the reason that we don't play, I think, and this is the reason why I don't play, because I never learned how to play. When I was a child in this age, or my son's 7, and it was already a lot about performance, meritocracy. It's about getting good scores in school, getting the 100 score. It's about discipline. It's about, you see my parents working so hard, they were not with me. There is no fun time. I grew up in Beijing, in China. So there was no fun for me. So I actually don't know how to play. And I think that's valid for a lot of Asian, especially this generation. So I'm a kid of the 80s. This generation, because we grew up in hardship, we saw our parents, they are maybe the first generation who is accessing wealth, especially in China when the governmental door to outside of the world is just opened. And so what I learned back then is, okay, obedience and don't do risky things. And at the same time, don't be fun. So I think I am a very non-funny person. So I went to Germany when I was 16. On the humor side of myself only came out embedded, maybe like you, in the Western culture. So I think then now growing up in the leadership, not in leadership, just in even in followership. If you are a follower, you are a junior, whatever manager, you just step into the workforce. And in the workforce today, regardless which part of the world you are, if you don't assert yourself, if you don't make a case for yourself, and if you are not the one who bring the idea forward, if you don't have more ideas, today you will easily be replaced by AI, or you will easily be replaced by non-skilled workers. So all the great value of the capability of doing great exams, academical capabilities, in a way, it's the opposite side skills that we would need to be successful in any workforce.
What was that move like? It seems like a pretty big change compared to living in Beijing, especially in the mid-90s or early 90s.
Yeah. I see. But it's a puberty move. It's an immature move, but sometimes things just happen to be good for you as well. I think it's not a conscious move. It's rather a immature thought I'll share. So in Beijing, how I grew up is a bit different than the other kids in Beijing. So my parents, it's very common that grandparents take care of the next generation, where the parents, both of them, have to work. My parents work overseas, and my grandparents, they were very self-involved. So they did not allow me to go out to play with the kids because there's OCD of the cleaning things, and they didn't have my back. I feel that whereas the children in the primary school, even if the parents were not there, but if they get into the fight, the parents will step in, and I never have this strong backbone. So I always felt very alone. And that's the first thing. Second thing is that I am, for a Chinese Northern person, I'm a very dark-skinned person. Back then in the 80s was a very bad thing, because if you live in Beijing, in Shanghai, you are a little bit more premium than the suburb or the rural region back then. So they will say your parents, since they're not there, they found you in the garbage bin, or you are farmers' kids, they adopted you. So all the bad things today is not even an insult, but back then was quite a thing. So I had very low self-esteem because I was very badly bullied in school. And then lastly, my nature is a outgoing, curious, and street smart kind of person. I like to do things, and I'm not good in. I don't enjoy studying academics. I don't see the reasoning behind why I had to do advanced math or any of the things that we teach in school. So then, to summarize, we have this very extroverted, dark-skinned, low self-esteem girl who asks things, who are questioning things, who is an individual who does not follow the collective. My grandparent was always called to school because the teacher has some issue with me, and I felt very unconformed in China. So when I was 15, 16, even before, I said, I don't want to be a girl. I want to be a boy. So I cut my hair short. I got all the boy stuff. I was a very boyish kind of a tomboy kind of a persona. And then in puberty, I told my parents, I need to leave. I think I can never pass the middle school exam. So to get into a great high school, to get into a great university, I don't see a future. I will be just one of the sands among the sea. So it's sandcore. So yeah, so then I told my parents, I want to go to a country where individualism is celebrated. And I, through the television back then, and because I was doing a lot of things with the boys, I convinced myself I love technology. So I want to drive cars. I want to, all the boy stuff, because you spend time with them as well. So then there was the country that was promoted the most of advanced technology. It was Germany. So then I went to a boarding school there, and things has tremendously changed for me, because everything what I just described, what is adversity for me in China has become a strength. They were like, okay, there's a Chinese girl who is dark, who is not carrying an umbrella under the sun, like most Asian. Second person, there's a girl who does not speak German, but she tries to communicate with everyone. With a broken German she spoke. And then with hand and feet, she wants to be part of the society, which most Asian people didn't do. Again. And then once I spoke a bit more German, they recognize, oh, this is not someone who is out in school, she is interested in things that outside of the school, which again, the Western country advocate for doing things with your hands. I was in a lot of extra activities in school that has nothing to do with academics. So I had become this very non-Asian persona, but still with the Asian face. And that has gained a lot of appreciation from the society, the environment I was living in. And that again gave me the confidence that I needed to strive in my adult life.
Wow. So did you feel like you adjusted pretty quickly, or did it still take some time, even though it sounds like it was a better fit for you in Beijing, did it still take some time to settle in?
Yeah, years. I would say it took me at least, so I went to high school 4 years. And so I think I felt more of who I am, more confidence in the fourth or the fifth year in my early 20s. Yeah, you're right. I never thought about this until you said it. It took a while. And I think that the eagerness to make friends fast, you want to get shortcut because you want to, the sense of belonging to another environment. So you're so eager to make that happen. Yeah. But you can't fast track. A lot of things take time. Yeah. 4 years. Yeah.
4 years. Wow. Looking back, it obviously sounds like you are happy that you made that move and it was good for you and your life path. But do you feel like it was luck that landed you there? Or looking back, is it like you made the right choices and the right decisions and were able, because that's a lot of, I would say, internal like understanding of yourself, to realize that at such a young age that you didn't fit the mold of what would work well where you grew up, and you needed to make a change, and then ended up having this opportunity in Germany with all the ways it fit, like you just mentioned. When you think about it for yourself, do you think, how much of it you think was luck and how much was your own doing?
I think half. The decision to go to Germany was mine, because I naively believed in a way that a Western country that has great technologies and that celebrate individualism. It could be France, could be Spain, it could be any Western country, I would say. So I think it's the right choice to going out, but the luck happens to be in Germany, and I made it work. So it's a combination of the things.
That's right. Like the saying, we make our own luck in a lot of ways, right?
Correct. Serendipity, but you made it happen. Yeah.
So then you went to school there and you started working. And the next thing I wanted to ask you about is you started a company, I believe, while you were working your full-time job.
Corporate career. Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Ask the question.
No, I was just going to ask, how did that happen? I'm always curious, again, from an entrepreneurial side of things. I'm not somebody who, I don't think of myself as being entrepreneurial, but I seem to be drawn towards entrepreneurs and people doing their own things. I'm always interested to hear both the practical side of how you made it work while you're already working a full-time job, and then, also more on the mental side of things, what drove you to do it, how you saw the opportunity and that sort of thing.
Yeah. I think this is probably the most uninspiring story. Because I think there are a lot of entrepreneur narrative today is just BS. Entrepreneurship came to me is not that I wanted to be an entrepreneur in my case. There are a lot of people saying I have done a very good corporate career and then you started a company. That's just the two things at the same time. I would say that's the easiest way to do because you have a safe corporate salary and now you use the free time. Well, of course, I was much younger. I have no liability, not married, no kids, no debts. So what is there to lose? I think the best time if you don't want to become an entrepreneur, I actually wouldn't recommend anybody to become an entrepreneur without having a solid corporate, having a solid corporate working experience or having worked for a bigger organization to see how organizations run to gain the experience. And so back then the opportunity came to me. So then I got my friend who is working for BCG, a excellent business case builder. I have no idea how to do that. And then we actually did some business case scenarios. What is possible? And can we be the B2B partner? So can we build a company? Let's just solve the problem for him. Let's build a company and be the middleman and negotiate a deal with the big companies to get smaller, maybe just as a miscellaneous company and then get some minimum order and then buy some machine to do a trial. So this is actually how the company started. We got a 60,000 euro loan from the bank to buy the first machines with 10% interest. There is no VC, no narrative. It's just like a proper bread and butter business. And yeah, that's lasted for 7 years to become $1 million business on the side.
So after you built up that company, you had an exit. And if I recall correctly, it was after that you moved to Singapore. Do I have that right?
Yes, so during that time. So essentially I moved to Singapore in 2017 when the company we have reached a stage where the main person, which is me, because I am the salesperson between Germany and China back then. So one of us have to step out. We are too big to manage it on the side, but we're too small to hire a proper CEO that is so qualified and is caring enough. We tried this in the past, but it did not work out. So we said either we divest back then, or one of us. It could only be me back then to step out. So I stepped out and took the company to Singapore.
After that, you went on to found your company, Zazazu. But can you tell me where did the idea for that come about?
So most of the girls are brought up with the narrative, you have to be the good girl, don't make too much noise, and then don't advocate. I always say don't advocate. Don't toot your own horn. And it's not only an Asian thing. Now in Germany, I see the same thing. If a woman stand up and then assert her point, especially when this is a soft-spoken feminine person, you feel very annoyed because you expect her to be conformative and agreeable and to be the nice girl. And deep inside, we have taught girls not to make noise, not to stand out. Now in the corporate world, you suddenly have to stand up and then do the opposite. And we deep inside, women just don't have that confidence to make that shift. So I thought, what kind of business can I build to help women to align with who they actually are? And this needs to start from something from inside. This cannot be some power poses, say, I am remarkable. I still, from today, don't believe this external values. I think you need to start with feeling comfortable in your own body, meaning knowing who you are sexually, because sexuality informs identity. And once you are clear in who you are, that builds confidence. And that confidence is gonna push you out and to pursue whatever you wanted to do. So I wanted to target this issue with a completely different angle, which is to make women feel comfortable in their own skin. So sexuality. That's why I started, yeah.
Do you find that people get uncomfortable when you start phrasing things that way, or is there any challenge around that?
Extreme. I think majority of people feel uncomfortable. That's why I feel so comfortable in saying this, that my sensor is maybe probably a bit off when I tell people back then, but I remember back then, when the moment where you mention sex, unless it's followed by a health, then people are like, who? So are you a doctor? Oh, I'm not a doctor. Oh, why are you talking about sex? Then, so everything, when this comes to sexual well-being and the women, it's largely related to reproductive health. That gives you certain legitimacy to talk. But in the moment where you talk about all diseases, like sexual health in the sense of sexual transmitted diseases, and then we'll talk about sexual pleasure, clitoris, all the things that, that is God made or created through the nature, people get extremely uncomfortable because this is a narrative that we don't own. Anything when you talk about sex and women, you will be immediately put in the corner of porn.
And have you seen that get better over the years since you started, or is it still very conservative and traditional?
Yeah, I think things has tremendously changed. Just in 5 years, I started Zazazu 2020. When I was saying before, timing is so crucial, is that I can tell I have the full confidence if I were to state Zazazu today, I think I will be pretty serious be back the company with the capability I have today. Because back in 2020, sexual well-being, female sexual well-being belongs to the category of femtech, so female tech, health technology, the short term like fintech. I remember Google that term to find my peers in 2020. Google will correct you to, do you mean fintech? It was not even a term. I was the very first one who started a proper company where we see back the company backed by angel investors, like a legitimate, not one sex coach, solopreneurship. We have a proper team, funding, and so on. The very first one in Asia, in Singapore, let's put it this way. Today, there is, if I can count just 10 of them without even thinking out loud, and I think fintech, there are 150 companies just around the corner. So the space has tremendously evolved. And the pioneer, I think, we were too early ahead of its time. And also the next generation, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, they have a very different narrative of essential women, of how they access. I don't access this as doing a duty for anyone. This is for me. If I decide whether I want or how I want to have it, when I want to have it, the narrative has changed completely as we evolve.
That's good to hear. One question I would have personally in this subject area is, what can men who are not necessarily in the C-suite, not running their own companies, maybe someone like myself who has a smaller team, not making a lot of hiring decisions all the time, not influencing HR policies and that sort of thing, what can we do to be better allies to women, to foster equality and the growth of women in their careers that's on par with men?
I think the small business owners actually have more power than they think. Because of the nature of a small business, you probably need people that are more flexible. They are not the typical corporate career ladder climber. So then the qualification requires different. And I have to say, I have met through the work I do now with Elevate, the second company we have, the Elevate Group, is that we see a huge amount of women who actually drop out their corporate ladder when they have children. And because today, for the majority corporate, it's still a bad thing. I have so many women coming to me saying, oh my God, I'm pregnant. I'm so scared to tell my boss, which is the most amazing thing in life. But the society has shaped the narrative that women, you are immediately treated as citizen second class. This lady coming to me said, I finally find the courage to tell my boss. Use the narrative we actually exercised that I decided. The only thing he said was, I am disappointed. And then this is just sad. And then he has been a very supportive boss for her career. And so then these are women, and then in a way, once the children's there, life not going to be easier. So many of them actually consider to take a step back, doing something else. Because again, the next generation say, I don't need to hear this shit from you. And now I already know, you already make a statement that I won't make where I want to be. So now what do I want to have in my life? I want to have more flexibility. I want to have the time and then to be there with my kids. So flexible work, that is something for a small business like us, we can easily offer. And because it's not about, FaceTime, It's about getting things done. And this is much more aligned with a corporate because it's still a lot, as much as we want to advocate for remote work. But it's still about, okay, can you be there? And then you need to attend the meeting at 9 p.m. or at 6 p.m. where you have to pick up the children and so on and so forth. So I think the small business owner have a lot of agency. And then I think for a lot of women, they are willing to make a pay cut, but in exchange to have the wealth to spend time flexibly.
Yeah, I have a couple of parts I want to dig into more on that. First of all, again, growing up in the US and living in Singapore only recently, I've never had a helper as a child, and it's something very new to me. So we do have a helper, and there's obviously other ethical concerns as far as the helpers are from very disadvantaged countries usually, and they're coming here and they're not being paid what would be minimum wage for a Singapore citizen living here. It's a special visa they get and that sort of thing. But as far as working mothers and careers go, I feel, and I'm wondering if you agree, that it's helpful for women in Singapore to have this option to be able to offload some of those, both parents, not only women, to be able to offload some of those household duties and domestic things that need to be done. Do you have any thoughts on how this phenomenon of hiring helpers affects the families and the work that ability to continue their career as after being parents?
I think that's probably most people don't want to, especially from expat perspective, why they don't want to live in Singapore. Because I can be very clear on this one. If women would have wives, they would be so much more successful than men. The reason that the men are there where they are is because someone else took care of everything else. So if women would have wives, I think we will be more successful than men. So having them come into the domestic helper narrative, they are our wives. I think if I have to choose between my husband and my helper, I'm not so sure. No, you can only take one from with me to somewhere. I probably choose my helper because she's a mother herself and she knows exactly, and I trust her 100%. And you can focus. You can do what kind of mind space, head space you create for women when you are not the GM at home. Because a lot of how women also tell me, oh, my husband is very supportive. Who cook dinner? And the women are usually still the GM at home. As in, okay, you have to pick up the kids at 5 p.m. You need to send him to the class at 5:30. So a lot of women are still, myself included, crafting the schedule for the men to be helpful. Whereas when you have the helper, my helper has the agency of when to pick up the kids, when to do dinner, and she's the GM at home, manage the household and so on. So in that sense, she is my wife. And I think I have a little bit different thought in Singapore. In Singapore, it's great because it's so convenient and so affordable. But I think affordable is relative. Because in Germany, for example, the ones who excel in their corporate career, it's not that you don't have the money, no? It's just not common or not socially acceptable to have a helper, or even in the US. So you say, you know what, my wife and I, we work both as equals. Now, in order for my wife to excel her career, entrepreneurship, or whatever sphere she is, we will dedicate as a family half of the household income just to hire someone that can support her or us. This narrative is not well seen because then, if, for example, in Germany, you are being put in the category, how dare you? The government is supporting you, the company is supporting you. Now you outsource your duty to someone else, even pay the money for someone else to take your role. What kind of mother are you? You will be easily put into the category, which for a lot of women is a huge burden. And financially, often we don't see the compound effect. You drop off 1 to 3 years, you think, okay, you restart at the salary you had, but your husband has already progressed in the next several levels. So you will always be falling behind. And if you have to make a decision, who is the lead career, who is following who, which in my opinion should be seasonal, everyone takes turns. But in that case, you will always fall behind if you don't make that clear.
I think one thing that has surprised me, but it has been very noticeable since I became a father is how low the bar is for men and to be a dad, like to be a good dad. If you're just doing what you should do as a parent and are able to interact with your kid and take care of them and change diapers and all the things that everybody I feel should be doing, you're considered a great dad. Whereas for women to be a outstanding mother is a lot more difficult for to have that people's perception. So I did want to ask you, as somebody who is in this kind of women's empowerment space and supporting other women, do you feel like you have extra pressure to be the perfect role model?
You mean the perfect role model for other women?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't. I have a zero admiration. I have a zero ambition. Zero ambition to become a role model in that. I think every woman should decide what's the best version for her. And the reason that we are so miserable, we want to be the perfect mother, perfect corporate employee, to have everything at the same time, to have it all, is because the pressure we think, the perception that other people could have on us. Not a minority of women have a clear definition what the success means to her, myself included. No, I'm still working out. When I get triggered by Instagram. That's why I rarely look at Instagram. I get triggered by LinkedIn as well. Oh my God, my fellow whatever just raised what kind of money, and then she still have the perfect body running with her kids in the bikini on the beach. It's this kind of outside validation what could be, and what does it mean? You only see the beautiful side and the side that people want to share, that one fracture, one short moment of their life, which is broadcasted in social media. And that's redefine everything we think what the success means to us. So I think everyone needs to find their own role model, but also from a holistic view of what does it mean for you. You can take some aspect of that person, but circumstance and life choices, and there are so many things that people don't know what happened behind closed doors, behind the algorithm. And I think the number one success formula for women is actually to sit down with their husband and say, what does success look for us? What does success look for me as an entrepreneur or as an individual? What does success look for me as a mother and as a parent together? So that have clear definition. And at this stage, because this can be a seasonal thing, that your 3-year-old daughter had a very different need when she's 6 or when she's 10. And I recognize I am probably a better parent to my kids when they become older, when they are more aware, because I don't know how to play. And my helper, for example, she's great in play because she enjoys play. So if you look at the traditional narrative, the mother need to be with the child. I am miserable, he is miserable, and we fight all the time about thing. And if my helper, who is the second mother, she enjoys it, he enjoys it, isn't that a win-win? So if you put a traditional sense of success, I failed miserably. And that's why I think everyone needs to have their own definition, what a success looks like.
So would you, if there was someone who, which I'm sure there are, who views that as wrong, or that someone isn't there doing their duty as a mother that way, what would your advice be for someone who gets that criticism? Just to ignore it, or to rise above it, or what should people do?
This is a difficult question. I think it's very difficult to ignore it, but you do have to block and to make it clear it's your decision. You can decide whether you want to argue it, you want to justify it, and you have to know why. I used to justify the decisions I made, but I recognize the justification is because I need outside validation. I need someone to say, JingJin, you are doing the right thing. So I need to come clean and to be 100%. I need to stand 100% behind my decision. Once you are 100% behind your decision, you will recognize, at least for me, the needs to explain disappears. I write a lot about LinkedIn, and there are a lot of things people don't agree with me. And you can't, I think to ignite a conversation is great, But as long as it's to raise awareness, to show different perspectives, great. But it should never be to convince someone to take your stand, because they never will. You must be the person who stands behind your decision, your family, as in your husband, your inner circle, and then find friends and find peers who are like-minded, who have the similar view, where you don't have to justify yourself. It's already wrong when you have to justify yourself to anyone. Your decision, yeah.
And on those LinkedIn posts, do you get a lot of negative feedback or haters in the comments?
I was a haters, different views, and some are, if I see some view are legitimately expressed, respectful, I will share, I will tell them a different perspective, but you will always have any things that progress, make a shift. We are in the shift, changing shift of more women on power in every aspect of society. And a lot of men and women feel that this is not the right thing to do. And it's that we are neglecting our children. We are taking away the existing power of men. Of course, if the moment where you take away something, you don't see the benefits. And it's always comfortable to be where we are instead of change. So change requires all this friction, all this discussion. And the goal is to show you, the naysayer, the different perspective. But never to convince them. I think that in different stage, in some of the things, I had someone 5 years ago had that wrote me a big reject, how sexual well-being, how our business ruined his sex life because his wife now has discovered ways, how to pleasure, which does not involve him. Because she through some courses we did and she understands her body better now.
Or maybe he wasn't.
Sweet, but actually, and then she has a big hater. He made also in social media a big hater about company and so on. And afterwards, and he went through a healing process himself. He actually came back just a year ago and said, I think this is one of the best things that, through your company, and then my wife actually discovered her and she has become a more confident, a more happier person. And then I did some inner work. So he has done some inner work himself so that he can understand where she's coming from. And he become actually the better ally to her and the better husband. And they have actually now a much better spot. It's a seasonal thing as well. Sometimes it's you put the awareness drop there and eventually it will evolve or not, like a seed in the pot.
Yeah, that's a great story to end on. I have one last question that I like to ask all of my guests, which is, if I talk to you again in 5 years, what would you like to be able to tell me has happened since then that would make you feel successful?
I think we have also in the Elevate group, we are in the mission. We want to impact 5 million professional women and make a positive impact. An impact can be measured various ways, to be more confident, get the next job, to transit from corporate to entrepreneurship, anything that women deserve and should have. And we are bringing up from a skill perspective, courses, coaching, so a whole suite of things that we are helping women to progress in their life. And in 5 years, I would like to say that we actually managed to impact 5 million women. And there's a ripple effect. It's not only us as a company help women, but the narrative that the things we do and the mission of let's create ripple effect, let women help women, let's not see women as competition, but allies. The collective, the wisdom as such creates the ripple effect that can create this multiple effect, compound effect that in 5 years there would be 2030, to have helped the 5 million women to make more conscious decision and have better awareness and better life professionally.
That would be awesome. How about anything personally that you're working on improving, or that you would like to have a different way of doing things, or be able to say something has changed in the next 5 years?
I think a lot of things. I think to be more aware, to be more present in what I do, especially I think in parenting. That's something I am a bit advocate about therapy. I think that every one of us is born with trauma and has experienced a lot of trauma from the birth. And I am working on a lot of things that I can carry on, healing the inner child in 5 years, I want to be able to say that the 50% of the things seeking for outside validation and also walk my own talk. A lot of things I write out loud in LinkedIn is partly also for myself. And then also to genuinely believe, not just, okay, to fake it. Okay, I want to enjoy the time with my son, but I just don't. To be real, to understand why, and to be at ease with that as well. So if I can be at ease and then make peace with myself with the 50% things that I am working on with my therapist, I think that's a win.
That's great. Where can people find you if they want to follow you and hear more of what you have to say?
On LinkedIn.
Or work with
That's my only platform that I share.
Okay, great. We'll put the link to your LinkedIn in the show notes as well as your two businesses.
And we have the newsletter for the Elevate group. I think so we share bi-weekly about all tips and tricks and everything that help women to progress in the workplace free of charge. And just subscribe. And then you get actually me and my business partner, Uma, our bi-weekly wisdoms.
Great. Yeah, we'll definitely put the link for that in there. Thanks again, JingJin, for joining me. It was great to talk to you, and we'll speak again soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Before We Get There with your host, Nicholas Brayman. Please like and subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can also find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Before We Get There Podcast. New episodes are released every other Thursday morning. See you next time.